I didn't lose everything that day. I thought I did. But looking back now, I realize I was just being set up for something far bigger. It started like any normal morning. I made coffee, kissed my kids goodbye, and went about my day. Life wasn't perfect, but I had a home, a family, and a routine I thought was safe. I thought love was enough to hold everything together. I thought trust meant forever. My ex-wife, she had a way of smiling that made you forget she could hurt you. I never imagined that same smile would one day mark the moment everything I built began to vanish. We fought sometimes, sure, but who doesn't? I never imagined our arguments would end with me walking out, thinking I'd come back to a house full of memories, only to find my life ripped away. She had taken the kids, the house, every bit of security I thought I had, and the worst part? She did it so quietly, so perfectly. It was like I was never even there. I remember standing in the driveway staring at the "sold" sign she'd placed on our home. My hands were shaking, my chest tight. My children's laughter, the same laughter I had woken up to every morning, was now just a memory. I had been blindsided by the person I had trusted the most. "I don't understand," I whispered to no one in particular. "How could she?" At that moment, my mind started racing through every argument, every smile, every quiet lie I had ignored. I should have seen it coming. I should have noticed the phone calls she deleted, the late-night meetings she never told me about. But I didn't. And now I was standing in the ruins of my own life. I stayed quiet for a while, sitting in my car, letting the reality sink in. I thought about all the things I'd worked for, the late nights, the overtime, the weekend projects, all of it gone. And yet, something inside me didn't break. Something whispered that this wasn't the end, that maybe, just maybe, the truth was still waiting somewhere. I remembered my late grandfather, a man who always believed in justice, in doing things the right way, even when the world turned its back. He had been secretive at times, but he had always been fair. And I remembered something he once said, something I had ignored when I was younger. "Property isn't always what it seems. Always check the records." I laughed bitterly at the memory. At the time, I didn't understand what he meant. But now, I was desperate. I needed a way to fight back, a way to reclaim what was mine. Not out of spite, I wasn't a teeth that kind of man, but because I couldn't let my children grow up thinking their father had just disappeared from their lives. So I started digging. At first, I thought it would be simple. Old deeds, property records, legal paperwork. But then I stumbled upon something unexpected, something hidden in the dark corners of my grandfather's old files. A property deed written years ago. Not just any property deed, one that listed a house, an address, and the rightful owner, my grandfather. My heart skipped a beat. Could it be? Could this really be the loophole I needed? I remember staring at that paper for what felt like hours, trying to understand. My mind spun with possibilities. The house my ex-wife had taken. Could it be connected? Could the law, something I had always trusted to be rigid and merciless, finally work in my favor? That night, I barely slept. I sat at the kitchen table, the deed spread out in front of me, and thought about everything that had happened, about betrayal, loss, and the crushing weight of seeing your life stripped away. But amid all the pain, a spark ignited, a spark of hope. I wasn't going to beg for what was mine. I wasn't going to let anger dictate my actions. I was going to be strategic. I was going to fight, quietly, smartly, and ruthlessly. Because sometimes revenge doesn't come from shouting. It comes from patience, from finding the secret no one else knows, from watching the world think they've won, while you quietly take back what was always yours. And that's when I realized my ex-wife may have taken the house, the kids, and my peace. But she had no idea that the foundation I was about to uncover would change everything. This wasn't just about money or property. This was about justice. about truth, about reclaiming a life stolen from me, piece by piece, secret by secret. I should have been afraid, but I wasn't. I was ready, because the next step was going to surprise everyone. The days after I found the deed were strange. I wasn't sad anymore. Not the kind of sad that keeps you in bed. No, this was different. It was a quiet, simmering determination. Every time I thought about my ex-wife smiling while taking my home, while holding my kids in her arms, it made my jaw tighten. But I didn't act recklessly. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed to understand what I had. The deed wasn't just a piece of paper. It was a key to a past my family had buried, to a secret that could change everything. And I had no idea how tangled the web was going to be. I started digging into my grandfather's records. Old banks, property registries, legal documents, letters hidden in drawers. Every paper I opened whispered the same thing. Someone had kept this secret for a reason. And then I found it. A small, folded note inside the deed. Faded ink, almost impossible to read, but the words hit me like a punch. This house, this land, it must stay in the family. Do not let it fall into the hands of those unworthy. They think they can take what isn't theirs, but the law will protect truth if the truth is found. I felt a chill. My grandfather had planned this. He had left me a way to fight, long before I even knew I would need it. I couldn't tell anyone. Not yet. Not the lawyers, not the police. Not even my friends. If my ex-wife suspected I had found anything, she would have hidden everything. She was cunning like that. I had to be careful. That night, I went to the old house, the one she had bought. I parked across the street, watching. The windows were lit with the same warm glow I had once loved, the same lights that had made the house feel like home. My children's laughter echoed faintly through the walls, and I felt anger, yes, but more than that. Betrayal. She had acted as if she owned it all, as if my existence had been erased, as if my children's father was someone who didn't matter anymore. I wanted to scream. I wanted to pound on the door, but I stayed silent. I stayed hidden. That's when I noticed it. A small detail. Something she overlooked. A mailbox, slightly crooked, with the wrong name on it. A tiny mistake that no one else would see. But I saw it, and I knew then, even in her perfect plan, there were cracks. I went home that night and stared at the deed again. I traced the lines with my fingers, thinking about how my grandfather had trusted me to see what others couldn't, and I realized something powerful. She hadn't won. Not yet. Not really. The next morning, I started contacting lawyers quietly, framing questions carefully. I asked about ownership, inheritance, legal loopholes. I learned things I never thought I'd need to know: how property titles work, how trust deeds function, how old family holdings can override modern claims. Every answer was a thread I could pull, a door I could open. But the deeper I dug, the more complicated it became. My ex-wife hadn't just taken the house, she had started moving assets around. She had layers of lies, of contracts, of manipulations, and somewhere in all of it, she had counted on me being too blind, too trusting, too soft to fight back. I wasn't blind anymore. Late at night, I sat alone, whispering to myself, "They think I'm defeated. They think I'll walk away. But they have no idea what I've found. They have no idea what's coming." I knew the moment I took action, everything would change. Not just for me, but for my children, for the life they deserved, for the justice my grandfather had planned for me. And somewhere deep inside, I felt a strange calm. The storm was coming. But this storm wasn't reckless. It was deliberate. It was planned. It was mine. Because betrayal, I realized, isn't just about pain. It's about awareness, about seeing the cracks, the lies, the secrets no one else notices. About waiting for the perfect moment to strike back. And I knew that moment was coming. I should have seen it coming. But I didn't. She wasn't just taking the house. She was erasing me. My name, my role, my existence. Every memory we had built together, every late-night conversation, every birthday, every laugh, gone. Like I had never been part of their lives. The day I found out the full truth, I felt something break inside me. Not my heart, something colder, something sharper. She had transferred the house to a shell company, one that sounded innocent, legal on paper, but she had hidden the fact that it was tied to her new fiancé. Everything was being funneled out, disguised as normal business. And the kids, the custody papers she had presented? Forged. Not entirely, but manipulated. She had painted me as unstable, as someone unfit, just enough to tilt the judge's view in her favor. I remember slamming the laptop shut, my hands shaking. My mind raced, trying to process it. I had trusted her. I had loved her. I had given everything, and she had betrayed me in the cruelest, most calculated way possible. I should have screamed. I should have broken something. But I didn't. Instead, I sat in silence, letting the rage settle into clarity. Because rage alone doesn't win wars. Knowledge does. Strategy does. Patience does. And I had a weapon she didn't even know existed. The deed. My grandfather's secret deed. I spread the papers on the kitchen table, one by one, connecting every line, every clause, every hidden note he had left. It was brilliant. More brilliant than I could have imagined. The property had clauses in my favor that no one had thought to check. It was hidden in plain sight, buried under layers of legal jargon, old records, and my grandfather's foresight. And suddenly, I realized how much control she had assumed she had. She thought she had taken everything. She thought I was powerless. She was wrong. That night, I sat with a photo of my children in my hands. Their innocent faces stared back at me, and I whispered a promise I had never said out loud before. I will get us back. I will fix this. You will have your home. You will have your father. And she will see the truth. The plan started forming in my mind, step by step. I would not fight dirty. I would not stoop to her level. I would use the law, my grandfather's wisdom, and my own patience to unravel everything she thought was untouchable. I started quietly reaching out to a lawyer my grandfather had once trusted, someone who understood these old family holdings, someone who could see the layers that others missed. And as we spoke, I realized just how much she had underestimated me. She had assumed that because I had been blindsided once, I would remain so forever, that I would be too ashamed, too angry, too lost to ever fight back. But she didn't know me. She didn't know my grandfather. She didn't know what secrets had been left for me. I remember lying awake that night, thinking about every little betrayal. How she had smiled while my kids cried, how she had hidden her phone calls, how she had acted innocent while plotting to erase me. And then it hit me. This wasn't just about the house. It wasn't just about the kids. It was about control, about proving dominance, about making me feel small. And I had been small for far too long. The next morning, I walked into the lawyer's office with the deed in my hand, a quiet fire burning in my chest. I wasn't loud. I wasn't angry. I was calm, focused, and in that calm, I felt the power of every plan my grandfather had made for me. Every safeguard, every hidden clause, every word that said, "Justice will find its way." It was time to act, because betrayal like this doesn't just fade away, it demands reckoning, and mine was about to begin. I wasn't looking for revenge. Not in the way people think, yelling, shouting, breaking things. No, my revenge was quiet, calculated, precise. Because she had underestimated me. She had assumed that once she took the house, the kids, and my peace, I would fade into the background. She had assumed I would beg, cry, complain. She was wrong. I started slowly, methodically. Every call, Every meeting with the lawyer, every document I signed. It was like moving chess pieces on a board she'd even realize existed. I remember the first time I saw her confident smile crack. It was small, almost imperceptible, but it was enough to make my heart race. She had called my office, pretending everything was normal, pretending that she hadn't destroyed my life, pretending that I had no leverage, no way to fight back. And I let her talk. I let her assume she was in control. I let her feel safe, because she didn't know. I had the deed. My grandfather's hidden clause was like a secret weapon, and every step I took brought me closer to reclaiming what was mine. I started with the house. Quietly, I filed paperwork showing that my grandfather's original deed had priority, that the property had always legally belonged to our family, not to her shell company, not to her new fiancé, not to anyone else. The law is slow, but it's precise, and it always catches the details others overlook. The first court hearing felt surreal. Sitting there, I watched her, poised, confident, thinking she had won, thinking she had erased me from this story entirely. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The judge had the deed in front of him. The lawyer had outlined every hidden clause, every safeguard my grandfather had left. Every word was like a hammer striking truth onto the table, and slowly. I saw her smile falter. It was subtle at first, a tightening of the jaw, a twitch around the eyes, and then, finally, panic. I remember thinking, this is it. This is the moment she realizes she miscalculated. And she did. She tried to argue, tried to twist facts, tried to make the deed sound invalid. But the law, the truth, and the preparation were on my side. Every attempt she made fell apart under scrutiny. Every lie unraveled, thread by thread. By the end of the day, the judge's words were clear. The property belonged to me. Not her, not the company, not anyone who had tried to take it. I felt a rush I hadn't expected. Relief, yes, but also something stronger. A quiet, steady power. She had thought she could destroy me. She had thought she could erase me. She had been wrong. I didn't celebrate, not loudly, not with anger. I simply called the kids and told them that we were coming home. Their laughter on the other end of the line made something inside me shift. The fear, the heartbreak, the betrayal. It all melted into something new. Protection, justice, love reclaimed. And then I realized something else. This wasn't just about property or legal victory. It was about truth, about patience, about letting the universe and my grandfather's wisdom do the work that anger alone could never accomplish. I had learned something powerful. Silence can be stronger than noise. Strategy can be stronger than force. And truth always finds a way to shine. She never admitted defeat, not openly, but I could see it. In the subtle glances, the hesitations, the careful steps she took afterward. She had lost her grip on my life, and I had won back more than just a house. I had won back my children, my dignity, my belief in justice. And most importantly, I had learned that no matter how cunning someone is, there's always a way to reclaim what is yours, if you're willing to see it, plan it, and fight for it in the quiet, patient way that counts the most. As I walked through the front door of my reclaimed home for the first time, I didn't feel victorious in a loud, dramatic way. I felt calm. The house smelled like home again. The laughter of my children echoed through the walls, and I realized peace, justice, and truth feel better than any revenge I could have imagined. But somewhere deep inside, I also knew this story had changed me forever. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was someone who had been tested, betrayed, and yet emerged stronger, smarter, unshakable. And the truth was clear. Revenge didn't make me proud. It made me free. I walked through the house slowly, each step echoing memories I thought were lost forever. The walls held the laughter of my children, the faint smell of the meals we used to share, the quiet comfort of a home that had been stolen, and returned. I paused in the living room, looking at the sunlight streaming through the windows. I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. Not loud, not triumphant, just calm. It wasn't about revenge anymore. Not really. It was about justice, about reclaiming what was mine in a way that honored my grandfather, my family, and myself. About showing my children that betrayal, while painful, doesn't define who you are. It only tests what you're capable of becoming. I sat down on the couch, thinking back to the day it all began. The day I stood in the driveway, shaking, heartbroken, thinking my life had ended. That day taught me more than any victory could. I learned that betrayal doesn't just break trust, it reveals the truth about people, about who they are when no one is watching, when they think they can get away with it. I learned that patience is more powerful than anger and strategy more effective than force. I learned that silence, when combined with awareness, can be stronger than any outburst. Most importantly, I learned that peace feels better than payback. Because when the storm had passed and the house was mine again and my children were laughing in the backyard, there was no need to shout, no need to gloat. The world already knew who had won. I called my grandfather's lawyer one last time, not to gloat, not to boast, but to thank him. "Your grandfather trusted me with something important," I said quietly, "and I didn't waste it." The lawyer's voice on the other end was soft, almost reverent. "He would be proud. You did more than reclaim a property. You honored the principle behind it." And he was right. Standing there, watching my children play, I realized that life doesn't always go the way we expect. People betray us. Circumstances turn against us. Pain comes when we least expect it, but it also teaches us, shapes us, forces us to become stronger, wiser, and more resilient. I thought about my ex-wife, about the choices she made, about the path she had taken to try to erase me, and I didn't feel hatred anymore. Not really. I felt clarity that her betrayal could not define my story, that her actions, though cruel, had only pushed me to uncover my strength, that the quiet power of truth, patience, and planning could achieve more than anger ever could. I whispered to myself, softly, almost like a mantra. Sometimes walking away is the loudest revenge. Peace is the victory that no one else can take from you. And in that moment, I knew I had learned the ultimate lesson. Life is fragile and betrayal is painful, but truth is eternal, and when you have the courage to seek it, when you have the patience to wait for the right moment, justice has a way of finding you. I didn't just get my home back. I didn't just reclaim my children. I reclaimed myself, and that was worth more than any house, more than any court victory, more than any fleeting satisfaction of revenge. Because some victories aren't loud, they aren't flashy, they don't need to be celebrated. They are quiet, they are steady, they are lasting. And as I watched the sunset through my front window, hearing the distant laughter of the kids, I smiled. For the first time in a long time, I felt whole again. And I knew. No betrayal, no deception, no storm could ever take that away from me again.